Well, welcome to Political Justice. It's yet another Saturday afternoon. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Time in the Boston area. I believe 6 p.m. in Ghana, 7 p.m. in the UK. We are here in the diaspora and we are passionate about our dear country, Ghana. And so we consider it as a duty to contribute to happiness. And so this afternoon, we'll be talking about some of the major issues that have emerged in the political space in Ghana. One of the main topics is going to be the NDC's Youth Manifesto. In the course of the week, the NDC released its Youth Manifesto with promises or visions that the incoming or the presidential candidate wishes to carry out if he is successful in the presidential election come December 2024. We'll also be delving into the MPP strategy. What is their strategy going into this election? And then we'll talk about the politics of Supreme Court justices nomination. They are currently vetting 2 Supreme Court justices, and we'll be talking about the whole process of selecting Supreme Court judges, whether it's fair or is within the remit of the Constitution for the president to, at will, select Supreme or add judges to the Supreme Court. Now, I have 2 panelists who will be aiding me in this discussion. I have Oreku Ampofo, who is a policy analyst based in Canada, and Dr. Zita Seshi is not here yet, but she'll be joining us. Oreku, you are muted.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mark. I thought I would not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seemed like today is just you and I for now.
Yeah, it's going to be a wonderful discussion either way.
Yeah. So what we'll be talking about today is, I don't know if maybe you weren't hearing me because I hadn't brought you on stage yet. But we're going
to I heard some of the things you were saying, but I was busy typing that let me in. So I thought maybe you had forgotten of me.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, Zita is here, so I'm going to add her. Yeah. So I mean, we're gonna talk about the NDC's Youth Manifesto. They released the Youth Manifesto in the course of the week. They had certain key individuals go on stage and deliver the NDC's vision for the youth if they are successful in the upcoming election. And so I want us to jump right into that. Is the idea of actually coming up with the Youth Manifesto in itself a good political strategy? Is it a good move? We'll also talk about the specific issues that were raised in the Youth Manifesto. So let me just go right ahead, and I would play one of the clips of the individuals that went on stage. This is Edmund Combat, who I happen to know. He is
two countries.
Yeah, so Edmund right here is a recent graduate of the Kennedy School. He was here. He just left here in May. He finished in May. So while he was in the area, I got to sort of establish a connection with him, and I then consider him, and now consider him pretty much as a friend at this point. So he delivered a message on behalf of the youth in terms of entrepreneurship and the vision of the NDC if they come into power in the area of job creation by the young people themselves rather than waiting to be employed by an employer, right? So let's hear him, and then we'll talk about it.
Comparing Ghana to that of Thailand, and to be able to contextualize what President Mahama and the NDC is going to do, that is different compared to what has happened historically. So one of the things that I'm going to talk on is youth entrepreneurship and skills development. If you look at the case of Ghana and Thailand, around 1962 we had almost similar per capita income. Ghana focused a lot on theoretical education, and over a period of time we have done well. We've had a lot of the masters, the PhD, but in terms of economic development, Thailand has gone up and we have gone down. President Mahama, with the experience that he has, wants to change that. So what he wants to do is to focus on skill development, and the first thing he wants to do is a program he's initiating called the Ejumawura program. This program is going to ensure that every year, every 12 months, 10,000 businesses are established by young people. 10,000 businesses. Not 10,000 jobs, but 10,000 businesses. And these businesses will be made to employ at least between 20 to 50 people over the 4-year period. So with the first year in 2025, at the end of that year, we will have created approximately 500,000 jobs. And over a 4-year period, it will go to 2 million. In order to do that, President Mahama is going to establish a national apprenticeship program.
Nesting, and you know, this is why we love him. He thinks about us, the youth. He says there's a growing and emerging economy called the green economy. And this economy he wants to take advantage of. So he will set up the Ghana Green Project, the Green Ghana Project, sorry. So the Green Ghana Project will do two things. It will kill 2 important birds with a stone. So he will provide us with jobs through recycling, so that the Accra we see that is dirty, we can use that, all the products, recycle them, create jobs, and safeguard our future by protecting the environment. This is the man who we must vote for. This is the reason why we call him friend of the youth. And to my personal favorite, guys, the 24-hour economy. When I speak of the 24-hour economy, are you not excited? Are you not excited? So on the 24-hour economy, guys, hello? On the 24-hour economy, the president says, and our game changer he is, he says we should give him the nod, and he will disrupt this failing economy for the better. Centuries ago, nations used to go to war through the barrel of the gun. These days, that has changed. We are in modern times. And war is by economic power, simple. This economic power, it depends on the number of products that you can have, commodities that you can have on several trading markets. And so 24-hour economy is telling us that we have a God-given gift of 24 hours. Ghana, China, US, we all have that. When you go to China Mall in Spintex, or when you go to China Mall in Weja, and you get products over there that are cheap, it's because we have some people in China working all day to produce those products for us. We must return the gesture. What can we do? We must take advantage of the 24-hour economy. There are so many questions, some, objective questions, some the naysayers. The demand, and if we produce and it exceeds the demand, we have over 400 million people, in West Africa. We would we will export these products to them. Beyond West Africa and in Africa, we have billions of people. If we have surplus, we will export to them. Now let's go. Let me give you this simple mechanism, guys. When you go to your local factory in your various districts and communities, you get there. We have Akosia, Fozia, we have Estenam living in the same house. But that local factory works from 8 to 5 each day. And it's only Akosia that works in that factory because there's no space. So what President Mahama is promising us is that he's going to provide incentives for this factory. Tax incentives, security, name them all, appropriate incentives to ensure that space is created in these factories for Esenam and Fozia to join Akosia to work in these factories. President Mahama, we love the 24-hour economy. And so for us, the National Youth Organizer joined us here and mentioned formulas of pain, of our hunger. We have a formula for the 24-hour economy. And it's a very simple one. Formula 1-3-3. Same job, 3 people, 3 shifts. So when we say 24-hour economy, guys, you respond by saying formula 1-3-3. Can we do this? Youth, can we do this? 24-hour economy. 24-hour economy. When you meet the professors, the doctors who claim they don't understand 24-hour economy, tell them we, the youth, they called lazy. We have a formula for them to understand. It's very simple. Formula 1-3.
Yeah, there's another video that I would want to play on this subject matter. It's around education, but I think maybe we should just talk about this for now, and then I'll introduce that subject matter soon. So, I mean, and the professors these days are catching stray bullets all over the place in Ghana, right? It almost seems like if you have a PhD these days, you're not. It's risky walking the streets of Ghana. But but what do you think? What do you think about the overall strategy of this youth manifesto and the promises that are being made so far? Reku, I will give you the leading opportunity here.
Okay. Thank you so much for the invitation, Mark, and thank you for this conversation. And I also want to say good afternoon to your viewers or listeners, depends on where somebody's listening from. I think politically, the question you ask is this a good political strategy? Yeah. Politically, I think I'm not in the best place to assess it, in the sense that, of course, it's a good political strategy. It has promises, and the NDC is having lofty ideas, big ideas, which there is nothing wrong with that for the youth. Those big ideas, Formula 1-3-3, 10,000 jobs per business, and with time within 4 years, they are promising 500,000 jobs, or 2 million jobs within 4 years, according to the how they call it, the tape that you played. So these are good news. I mean, big ideas. But if you ask me the practicality, if you ask me to critically assess some of these promises, I think it just political rhetoric. It's just to wipe up political support. So on that big stage is good. The whole idea that politicians will always promise some magic within 4 years is something that we have to start critiquing them, and we have to start talking straight to them. And if you are a political strategist within the NDC and you really mean well for the NDC, even if you cannot say in public, you have to help the government that you support to really fashion out some of these things, because it's not helping anybody in any way. Because we saw some 8 years ago, 1 district, 1 million, 1 this, 1 this, and it has become like a political culture now. Everybody want to promise some big thing to galvanize support. let's break it down. I think the first speaker, the one who said, the guy that you say
Edmund.
Yeah, Edmund. Edmund made a first statement, which is true, that with time we've produced theoretic. Our education system has really focused on theories.
Theory, yeah.
So if you really want to change that, it's not going to be 4 years. So and you need that. You need to start reorienting people. You need to start from the base. For the whole idea that you think that within your first year, all of a sudden, a group of youth that have been trained in theories, all of a sudden, within that 4 years, start creating their own jobs and start creating every 4 years, create 10,000 jobs.
Yeah, but what I have to say about that is, I mean, it almost feels like everywhere in the world, politicians have been given a license for some level of hyperbole, right? It's kind of almost accepted that politicians they'll exaggerate and be hyperbolic in some of their promises. But you touch on an important issue, that they actually identify the problem, that our education has been theoretically focused. So that if a political party identify this major fundamental wrong in our system, and they decided they're going to correct it, but in your estimation, the time frame within which that transformation is going to happen doesn't sound realistic to you. Don't we at least give them grace for even identifying the problem and seeking to shift away from it?
So I don't think they've identified the problem. I think that Edmund was speaking. I don't know him, but I'm thinking he's a smart guy, and he himself was giving his own background. So I don't think it's a NDC as a party identifying that our educational system is dysfunctional. Apart from
he's part of the team, so he says that this is the focus of.
No, that was his introductory. That was his introductory remark.
Okay.
As a presenter, if we ask you to present something, you are going to add your own flair and add your own explanation to bring the context. So he was giving a context. I don't think that represents NDCs because in the manifesto or in the youth development strategy they talk about, they never said they are going to move the educational system from theoretical base to the practical base. They never really say that. And that will also demand a lot of consultation. So we cannot do it 1 year. That's bad. It's a good point. It's a very good point. Politicians, we have to start holding them accountable. We have to start letting them know that, we have a fundamental issue in our country. We have a fundamental problem in our country. The promises have been too much. And I think one professor was doing a content analysis of manifesto promises and the fidelity of politicians to their manifesto promises. I'm not sure of the names, so I don't want to mention the name, but I think that research was going on. We have to look for it from the Fourth Republic. And you will see that for all these years, these are politicians just make promises and they don't even tackle it. Because once they get into office, they are inundated with basic systemic issues that is difficult for them to even think of, and the corruption and all those things. So in my view, as an analyst, I think politically is a good strategy. I think, Mark, you want to cut me, so I'm going to sum up my comment. Yeah. But politically is a good strategy. It brings out the people, it brings out the crowd, big ideas, big promises. Tactically, in terms of actualization, I don't even think with especially with John Mahamad's track record, I don't even think they can even give a million jobs.
Okay. So, but I just wanted to follow up on what you said in terms of how realistic these promises are, and they tend to be very lofty promises given by politicians, and it doesn't seem like they can even accomplish half of them. But as put it in the context of a political strategy, what are the chances of any politician that comes and says that I'm going to be realistic with my promises? If they really did actual analysis and say, okay, in terms of feasibility, this is how much I can do if I'm given the nod. Do you think they'll be shortchanging themselves vis-a-vis other candidates if they actually go down that path? Say that we have become accustomed to these lofty promises, but somehow we have calibrated ourselves to really understand which is realistic and which isn't, so that if a politician comes and he is being realistic, then it almost sounds like he's incompetent or doesn't have a vision for us in the future.
I mean, I think we have to wait a little bit. I mean, the first time from my understanding of Ghanaian politics, the first time big, huge promises entered into our political subculture was Nana Akufo-Addo. I mean, the NPP was even hesitant, and the NPP was hesitant to release their manifesto, so they started releasing point by point promises, which caught on. So that was the first time. We want to see how Ghanaians are going to punish the NPP over time. And then we'll be able to know that if you're not realistic, we are going to punish you. Of course, Atamel's made promises, Mahama in his previous made promises, but it wasn't as a catch-all phrase like the way the NPP did it. And so with time, we will have the empirical data. But what I'm saying is that if our politicians, these two political parties can come together and say, okay, let us all understand the reality. We, like these two political parties actually represent the oligarchy of Ghanaian politics. If it was a family, who would have been with a family, whatever, heritage. Right. So these two political parties, because of the nature of our governance system, they are always, one of them always going to win, whether we like it or not. So in that sense, if really they have the country at heart, they can come to an elect consensus on what they have to do for the country. They will not. So in this case, if you come with a timid political promises, you're more likely going to shoot yourself in the foot. I think that's what you're trying to understand. But basically, the reality is that if you start making huge promises, it's going to catch up to you, and you're going to struggle as a politician. And that is what the NPP, the party I like, is struggling with.
I mean, and I think it might eventually correct itself, because if you overpromise and you fail to meet those promises, electors are going to soon catch on to it, and then they would sort of begin to be very wary or suspicious of people who are promising things that in their estimation would be very lofty. So Zita, yes, what's your position on this so far? And then afterwards, I'll go to the education subject of the Youth Manifesto.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's typical Ghanaian politics, right? That is how things are. And we need to understand the kind of people we are dealing with. In during every election, the various political parties need a hope. They need a hope. And for the NPP, some people have selective amnesia. It was 3 SHS, 1 district, 1 factory, 1 million, 1 constituency, 1 village, 1 town. That is the way Ghana's politics work. So we can engage in the whole intellectual discourse. But if you should do a poll in Ghana and you recruit the ordinary person on the streets, that is what they remember. That is the kind of politics we have. So you need to be able to have a mantra that people would chant and remember, oh, this is what this person is going to do for the year. That is just the kind of politics that we run in Ghana. I believe that it is doable, but of course, it's an overestimation and overpromising of some of the promises for sure, in terms of the numbers, because I watched the entire video, and I mean, there were subheadings: digitalization, education, unemployment, and and my favorite was nepotism. I don't know if we're going to come back and talk about it. Trying to clamp down on nepotism and reversing the double track system and all that. Some of the ideas are good. For 4 years, yes, timeline is definitely a constraint. For some of the policies, you need structures to be able to be in place, systems to be in place for you to take off, like the 24-hour economy. You need certain things. We need a consistent electricity. They said we do have the ability to do that. It's just money we don't have to be able to pump into the energy sector to do the make sure that electricity is flowing 24 hours. Security needs to be amped up. Street lights needs to be done. So for some of the promises, we need to make sure that there are certain structures in place for it to take off. Overall, this is how politics work. Like they say, shoot for the stars, and if it doesn't work, you will land on in somewhere in the sky. So I'm hoping that he will be able to pull but some of the numbers are quite bloated in terms of what they're able to deliver. It takes some time to be able to set the systems in place to be able to get things off the ground, especially in a country like Ghana where we don't have the best system. So it's just how Ghana's politics work. You need to energize the people with certain mantras that people will remember you for. And for the NDC and John Mahama, it's the 24-hour economy. We hear it and we know that, oh, this is the NDC we are talking about. And for the opposition, it is something called It Is Possible or whatever. So that is just how it works. We can sit here and go like, oh, we need to get to a stage where we are engaging in intellectual politics, but that is not what happens. You observe the masses of Ghanaians just understand this type of politics, that they want to remember you for something. And that is why the MPP is always clinging on to the free SHS, which has failed, but they cling on to it like it's, the best thing they've done in the entire 8 years, because that is what Nanado used as a hook. In as much as there were other issues, that is what he used as a hook to get the mandate. Free SHS. And so that's the type of politics we run in Ghana. And people will come up with, different forms of slogans. The most important thing is attempt to deliver. And even though you cannot deliver at all, attempt to deliver and have something to remember, for people to remember you for.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels like it's inconsequential in terms of what you promise and what you deliver. Because you can say you're going to be realistic. People may not be excited about your campaign. And then perhaps even if you overpromise and you come into power and people hold your feet to the fire, it's very likely that you might be pushed to do some of the things that you did than if you underpromise. So I feel like there's a certain sense and understanding, sort of in a gentleman sort of way, that this might be too much hyperbolic in terms of what you are saying you're going to do, but also we can also have we can also gauge and have a sense of what may be realistic. And yes, listening to the entire thing, I felt that yes, some of them were a little bit overbloated, but there were certain points that I feel like if they, at least we can consider them as aspirational. And so if they attempt in achieving them, at least we're going to get somewhere, right? But let me go quickly to the one on education. There's something that was promised, and I would want us to look at how realistic that is, or whether it's a good thing. Okay.
But he's extending it to cover.
Okay, so
only is he promising to dedicate a fund to free senior high school, but he's extending it to cover the private senior high schools. What do we mean? We have students who can't go into the public senior high schools, basically because the public senior high schools are full. But we have empty private senior high schools. If we can educate people at the same cost that we are educating people in the public senior high schools, in the private secondary schools, why do we leave the private secondary schools over there? Let's move them there and pay the same cost for them. And I think this is a very laudable initiative for which we should clap for John Mahama. I don't know if you're excited about the few policies I've mentioned yet, but if you're not excited, I'm sure the next one is going to shock you. I want you all to say with me, no fees stressed. No fees stressed. What are we saying? President John Mahama is simply promising that, one, for all university entrants into level 100, you are not paying academic fees.
all right, so I think it's enough. One of what he said there was sort of extending the free SHS to individuals who go to private schools. I don't know how realistic or feasible that is. Is that a good thing? And also, this idea that first year freshmen in colleges are not going to pay school fees for the first year. Izita, you might take the lead on this. What do you think about these two promises? In terms of education policy, are they wise policies?
I think he should have refrained from making a promise regarding the tertiary first year. As somebody who is a beneficiary, I think Akosombo International School is a private school. So as somebody who is a beneficiary of a private school education system, I don't think maybe Akosombo International School is part of his target audience. I'm sure there are other private schools, but that is an extremely high-end private school. There's no way you can substitute for like compared to a government rate level for somebody to enter a school like Akosombo International School, GIS, which is Ghana International School, or Tema International School, because those schools are extremely expensive. And so I'm not sure if Mahama the NDC government have been able to outline the kind of private schools you're talking about, and if there is a way to substitute to ensure that they are able to take some of the people who are not able to enter the public school system. But for me, as somebody whose doctoral work focused on education, for me, my problem have always been this issue of always jumping the gun. Primary education in Ghana, SMS. And to touch back on what your friend Edmund was talking about, if we want to change our education to be more impactful, it starts at the basic level. Theory does not start in the secondary level or at the university. It starts at the basic level. That is when we reorient the student's mind to be solution-driven, to be creative. And it is unfortunate that every time they are skipping the basic education and they are looking at secondary and tertiary. And that exists because Ghana's basic education is primarily funded by foreign donorship. 90% of Ghana's basic education is funded through foreign donors. And so for me, it has always been a problem. Ghana has struggled to achieve the Millennium Development Goal, Sustainable Development Goal. Gender parity in education in terms of completion rate is still a challenge. I would have expected Mahama to pedal back, to go back on his free sanitary pad initiative. That is extremely important because even right now in the Western world and in the USA, in Canada and US, Canada, we are complaining about being taxed when it comes to sanitary pads. We grown women who work, we go to the shop and sanitary pads are costing $20-something and more. And it's like for a month, a woman is spending close to $100. Okay. And everybody's complaining. We call it the pink tax. But in all these other Nordic countries, there's like free sanitary pads. So I would have expected such a policy to have been, brought back to the table. The school feeding program is a sham at the basic level. And the school feeding program, when I did my doctoral research in 2017, it was only primary school that was getting it. That means from class 1 to class 6. JSS were not getting the school feeding program. And that is when the girls were getting pregnant and getting dropped out because girls who were coming from poor homes who could not afford sanitary pads and of course lunch, they were the ones that were enticed by the inappropriate old men we have in our society and got them pregnant, which affected completion rates. And so these are the key things. And for a party that has an academic as a vice president, I would have expected better, much more thinking to have gone into this whole educational thing.
So your position is that they should focus on sort of the needs and problems associated with basic education to maximize that effort before then shifting resources to higher levels of education.
Exactly. Right? Because, and that is one of the reasons why MPP's free SHS policy failed woefully. That is part, because when I was hearing free SHS, I said, no, basic education, because in Ghana, we need to make sure that be it Agana, you are in Savalugu or you are in Jelukofa, the basic education is standard. It is not. Okay. There are kids under trees.
So we're basically jumping the gun by
Yes,
promoting
and then we
or
expect
subsidizing higher education at the expense of basic education when that hasn't been achieved in full.
exactly. And when the foundation is destroyed, there's nothing. We're expecting a kind of electorate that would develop critical thinking, that would be able to be a problem solver. It starts at the basic level. But there's so many basic schools that are deplorable, that do not have basic resources. And with the teachers, I have a few friends who are teachers on social media, and I do donations and all that. And it's really bad. So for me, I want us to go back to the basic level to make sure it is standard, that no matter where a child is, be it you are in Yankpala, be it you are in Nogokpo, be it you are in Prapra Bebida, the basic education is standard, the facilities are standard, the school blocks are standard, and the education is standard. Once we can do that and strengthen the policies like the school feeding program at the primary school level, extend it to the JSHS level, and ensure that we are having, or we are bringing back the free sanitary pad initiatives, these will strengthen the basic school education, then we can focus on. But because we are in a country, and I'm London, and because we're in a country where everybody needs a political hook, we need a campaign to get us into power, but we are not looking at continuity of policies. We are not looking at, the foundation, and that is why Ghana is where it is. Over 60 years, and the whole system is not working because everybody wants to claim a particular policy. Oh, I did this, I did that, but not build a particular system whereby there's continuity in our policies. I can appreciate what the NDC and the MPP have been doing for us so far, but it is not working. It's time we create a national development plan, 50-year development plan. We don't care. Don't tell us about your party manifesto. We already have a national development plan co-developed by all the political leaders in consultation with the citizens. This is what we want to do. If you come choose a sector, if you say your sector is education, do it, and do it from the basic to the top. If you say transport, whatever, choose a sector and build on it. But this whole issue of campaign promises always will lead us back to a ditch, because when the foundation is destroyed, there's nothing the righteous can do.
Okay. So, but in all fairness, this is only the Youth Manifesto. So these were promises that are targeted at the youth, people within sort of the age where they are no longer living with their parents and beginning life on their own. And so perhaps that's why the focus on education here is limited to that level. So let's hear what they have in their main manifesto, which will come up later, and see if they address some of the issues that you raise here. Hopefully they do. But if it's something that is not in there, maybe they're listening to us and will take that into consideration. Because yes, if the foundation is weak, the whole building is not going to stand for long. So Oreku, you of course are also an education enthusiast.
So Mark, this is what I think.
Yes.
And there's something I've said so many years ago. So education should be free. To me, there's no debate about it. It should be free, and I define basic education from grade 1, from kindergarten to grade 12, which means from KG1 to class 1 to SS3. That the F cube should be redefined to include that. So from that level, it should be free, and everybody should be able to get that education if Ghana is going to provide a practically oriented labor force among our youth. They should have some level of basic education, and that include high school. Because without high school, you really cannot go anywhere. And what Mahama is promising to me is great. If he's going to West, because those who go to private schools are Ghanaians, Ghanaian kids. So if you're going to extend existing public policy, a policy that exists among the public schools to include the private schools, to me it is a good idea. But there is a catch, and that is what Akufo-Addo free education couldn't think deeply about. And the catch is, for me, it doesn't make sense for us to think that we are going to feed Ghanaians or all Ghanaians in a way is currently implemented in high schools.
Okay, you just a second, and then I'll let you continue on along that line. Now, the thing about private high school in Ghana is it's not like this part of the world where basically the rich people take their kids to private schools. In Ghana, the private schools are usually, in most cases, for people who cannot make it to certain high schools that choose to go to private schools. So it's not necessarily a privileged class of people that go to private schools in Ghana. Yeah. Besides Akosombo International and those ones that we know are established, like the Ghana National and all that. But for instance, there used to be Ideal College that turned into a high school and all these places. Yeah. So, and that's where I feel that there might be a misunderstanding if people think that funding students who go to private schools as part of the free SHS thing would be essentially, wasting money because of the perception that people who go to private schools usually come from well-to-do families, and it's usually their choice to go there. But some of them go there based on their inability to get into the major high schools in Ghana.
Okay. Yeah, Mark, I think you've clarified. Yeah, let me break down my point I'm making.
Yes. So
first of all, generally speaking, education in Ghana, except the private, from grade 1 to 12, from kindergarten to high school, is tuition free, and it has been tuition free for a very long time. Whether it be even before Akufo-Addo, it has always been tuition free. The tuition has always been paid. All the big high schools we have, the tuition has always been paid by government. The cost is the boarding system that we have. It's the boarding system. And I think John Mahama, 8 years ago, had a better plan. So I don't know why he had abandoned it. I don't know why all of a sudden they abandoned it. I don't know why all of a sudden they abandoned it. It is so easy.
But again, this is only the Youth Manifesto, so the main one is coming. So hopefully.
Oh, but are they going to have a contradictory policy? I don't understand.
I mean,
they cannot have one which is promising different from what is. It must be this. It must.
Okay, all right. Well, but we'll see. So, I mean, they might be reconcilable somewhere, but
all what I'm saying is that the NDC had a better plan 8 years ago, and that better plan is that ensure that we have high schools across the country. And if you give me that to implement, this is how I'm going to go about it. If right now you ask me to implement free education across, it's going to be free for everybody, whether private or public. However, districts that don't have schools, we are going to bus them, because every district have 1 or 2 or 3 schools. We're going to bus those those students living in those villages to those districts that have schools. Then we quickly, within that 4 years, make a quick move to build schools, high schools across the country. So what you are doing is that you're taking all the boarding system out. And if somebody in Bolga decide to go beyond that district where he lives to maybe Tamale Secondary School, and you've given him that option to go to the school that is there for free, and he decides to go to Prempeh College, come to Kumasi and go to Prempeh College, that person is ready to pay, because you've given that person the option to go to a school in his district for free. So this whole free education can be done in cost-effective manner that will not be a pressure on the public in any way. Secondly, we have a lot of graduates that have finished school that are unemployed. So if you are solving youth unemployment, you have a lot of university teachers that if you entice them a little bit and you build a school in a village somewhere, they will go. They want jobs, they will go and do it, rather than spending all your money to feed students. Because the boarding is what is bringing the extra cost. Education is technically has always been free in Ghana for a very long time. It is the boarding system that is bringing the extra cost. And what I don't understand is that about 80% of Ghanaian students from grade 1, class 1 to JSS 3, virtually all of them stay home and finish their school. Most people write a BCE from home. For some strange reasons, we are saying that for that 3 years of high school, we cannot do it home.
Yeah.
For some strange reasons. I don't know.
I mean, is a tradition that has been set That
So
is
for some
difficult.
cases, we cannot do it home, and because of that, it has become an huge added cost. So when Mahama says he wants to extend it to private, I think it's doable. This is one policy that is doable.
Yeah.
8 years ago, I said Akufo-Addo's free education is doable, and he could have done it perfectly. The only thing I said was, I want him to stop this whole boarding system. You cannot stop it, like literally.
Yeah, it has to be gradual.
Stop it. But you have to use incentive to stop it. If you are from Konongo alone has like 4 high schools, public high schools. If you are from Konongo and you decide to go to Presec, it's up to you because you can pay. That's why you want to go to Presec for boarding school. We've given you option to go to Konongo Duma Secondary School for free. If you decide to go to Presec, pay and go. You give people the option, the choice.
Yeah, but you see, but the only,
that's how we go around these things.
But I think the only incentive for that to happen would be if you were able to provide community day schools in a way that are equally good. So that if I can stay home and attend a school in my neighborhood, and that school is good, well resourced, right? And I am assured that I would be tutored well to pass my SSCE versus going across the country to pay tuition fee or boarding fee. That might be the incentive that would let me stay home. And then gradually.
For the high school system, for the high school system, problem is not really too much about the resources. I mean, I can tell you, Notre Dame was not as resourced as Tamale Secondary School. Notre Dame was not even close. Yeah, it didn't come close. Notre Dame had better students, and not better, like they were having average of students that passed. I don't want to use that word better. Pope John and Ghana National. Pope John didn't have even a science resource center. Ghana National had it, but they go there and win the science quiz. The problem we have is that we cluster students. We cluster brilliant students
class-based system
in certain schools. I bet you if we decide to go schools in our districts where we come from, you'll see brilliant students coming from all over the country. Yeah. What we're doing for Prempeh College and Opokuwari and Presec and in Fansipem is that we've clustered good students across the country in that school. They have resources. They have some resources. Yeah. But what I've realized is that every district in our country, Ghana, has at least one high school that is certified by GES.
Yeah, but I get what you mean. But my question here is, what is going to be the incentive for a brilliant student to decide to attend a secondary school in his neighborhood instead of going to Presec?
No, we don't have to give you anything. When you decide to go Presec, you pay. So that's a choice.
But that's what I'm saying. I think we're making the same point. But I said that is the initial set of incentive that is going to discourage a kid from going to the so-called big name schools versus going to one in their neighborhood. Maybe
initially there will not be any data to show that if you go to that village school, you're going to do well.
Well, but
that person will still want to go to Presec.
So what would be the incentive then for him?
You shouldn't prevent any child from going to any school.
No, but what I mean is, what I mean is, what is the incentive to let the kids stay home and go to a community school instead of going to Presec?
You save money as a government.
Okay, so I mean, no.
But that's what I'm saying. So that we can use that money that we are using to feed the rest of
but I'm talking about the parent or the child. So, for instance, what I'm trying to say here is that now, with the current situation, right, we are the train already left the station. We can't bring it back. But as you said, we can use incentives to entice people to stay and attend school back home. And that way, gradually, you break the boarding school system. So my question here is, what is the initial incentive that is perhaps going to really convince a kid from saying that I'm going to still do better if I attend a community school versus if I go to Presec? Because the mindset is already there. Even though you and I understand that these schools actually just congregate a bunch of smart kids compared to other schools. But there's an initial mindset that if you go to Presec or go to Prempeh, your chances of doing well are high. And so no kid will want to take the risk of actually, and also, let's not forget the prestige thing. It's a real thing. This whole idea of going to a certain high school in Ghana and the kind of prestige and, if you like, privilege that comes with it cannot be completely ignored. So how do we break that cycle? that mindset of saying that I'm going to a prestigious school?
I mean, for me, it's over time. I mean, and the whole thing is that, like, I mean, we know that there's no prestige around any of these schools. It's not like they do any elitist anything. They just go to the normal school, do the babatin, and pass the SSC and go to university. They don't do anything special. All what I'm trying to say is that the incentive here is that you want to expand access to education to every Ghanaian from a policy standpoint. And also, you want to implement this policy quickly, so and in a way that will not also push the government coffers. Because if Muhammad decides to continue what Akufo-Addo is doing, what is currently there, which is going to be hard for Muhammad to turn around it can create a lot of political backlash. So he might continue to implement it, and now he's going to even expand it because of the power dependency nature of our policies and the way policies are made within the public sector. So he might continue it. But I'm saying that NDC, for me, 8 years ago, had a better plan. And that better plan was the community-day schools. And I think Mahama at that point was thinking alongside the same way I'm thinking. The community-day schools would have done the trick and the magic, where you will make
I believe it's still in the manifesto coming out. I think it can be reconciled with what
you make education free for everybody and not spend a dime compared to, because we are already paying teachers for free ever since we were born. High school teachers were paid by government, and they're still being paid by government. It's the boarding schools and the infrastructure that the government provide. So if a government provide that and make sure that everybody quickly, so take Asante Achem district where I'm coming from. There are some villages without high schools. Those are the kids that are going to be disadvantaged. You quickly bus them to the nearby schools for free. You quickly bus them. If you want to give them some lunch, that's okay. But your target is that the next 4 years, you're going to expand this education quickly, rather than giving that money for people to just spend it.
Okay, all right. So, Zita, I don't know if you have anything to add on this subject matter, but I would like us to move to the next, if you have anything quickly, but otherwise.
Yes, quickly. I totally disagree. We need to understand that. Sorry, I have a little fan here blowing me some air. I want to share the fact that there are prestige attached to those schools. And again, as a sociologist, people need to understand that people build a lot of social capital in these schools. So your network, my network is different. Like when my father died, I wasn't part of my year group, but they made a donation. I wasn't part, I've not been part, but I was surprised. They made a donation. They decided to go to my house, my parents' home when I wasn't away, and none of my brothers are there. They went there. We had a funeral for my father in America. Quite a considerable member of Makosomo International School people live abroad. The more and that it's a network. You want it's where we build our cultural capital, you know. And there are things I've gotten done when I go to Ghana that is, if you didn't go to a certain school to build that network. So prestige is there. But what I want to touch on is the cluster. These prestigious schools are clustered in certain regions. So it's about the geographical inequality of how these schools are clustered. So I grew up in Tema, and you say, okay, because we need to understand that Cape Coast might not produce a lot of students who might enter SHS like Accra or the Greater Accra region. So it's about how these schools are clustered and how they were, tied to missionary work and of course colonialism. So I disagree with the whole thing of go to school in your district and that there's no prestige attached to these schools. The incentive for people.
I think there's prestige, but I think it's vanity. It's a vain type of a prestige. Like it's not something that should be a consideration in our educational system, right? It's a vain thing to say that.
It's even is. I was getting clowned on TikTok. They said, "Oh, she didn't go to any better school. She went to the University of Saskatchewan."
But that's the problem right there. That's why that cycle needs to be broken. The whereby you have to be crowned because of the school.
But Ghana, even here, there is.
No, here it's college. It's not high school. It's not. Yeah.
No, so high school, it's all dependent on your school district. My brothers are American.
Yes. And that is the problem too here,
So
right? Where The wealthy people live in good school districts, which is problematic, where people, low-income individuals, don't have as good education as people who live in certain communities. So, but that's what I'm saying. It is a problem that has to be addressed. So let's not look at it as if it's something good to actually.
No, I'm not saying it's not a problem, but I'm just saying that Ghana's situation is not isolated. You just need to change the variables, and the same happens here. That's what I'm saying.
But you know, I think we can look at it here and also call out the bad things in the education.
Listen, I'm a sociologist, and I can tell you, social inequality, hierarchy, social class is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And as much as some of you can push for having an egalitarian society, mm-hmm. It is just idealistic.
I mean, it's aspirational, but it's you can achieve it up to a certain point, but not in full. Right? Yeah, I
agree. But do we have the system? How many years have Ghana been independent? 60. Some of these schools were established during the colonial time. So it would take, and it will not be in you and our lifetime. I agree with you. It's aspirational, but all society are structured on the basis of hierarchy and social class plays a role. And one of the key motivation factors, as somebody who grew up in Tema and went to a private school, my first public school encounter was in the University of Ghana. I can tell you that when we are preparing to write the BEC, for the fact that you say, oh, I'll get into Holy Child, that alone was a motivating factor for people to study. To get into this school was a motivating factor for people to study. People don't want to study hard for you to tell them to remain in their district and go to a day school when historically those schools are not perceived as prestigious. And for me, the way it is clustered too, I don't think there are enough good schools, or I don't want to use the term good, but prestigious schools enough in the areas where the concentration of students come from, which is mainly maybe the Ashanti region, Greater Accra region, the major cities. I don't think there are enough good schools to absorb students if we are to implement the go to your district, go to a school within your district kind of thing. You know, if we are supposed to do that, because you would then that way we are cutting boarding school, then it means you can either walk to school or you can take a taxi or a bus.
Yeah. Anyway, my position is that let's break the privilege. Like, for instance, I remember there was a year that, I mean, and maybe Rick, we talked about this, there was a science and maths quiz, right? Where there were two guys on the OWAS team. One of them was from Bolga and the other one was from Upper West. But these were guys that were representing a school in Ashanti region, and they won the National Science and Maths quiz. So can you imagine that if these kids attended schools in their districts, one in the Upper East, some school in the Upper East, another in the Upper West, and then these guys met the OWAS guys at National Science and Maths quiz?
What is the probability that they would have made it? You see, what is the probability that they would have made it?
But we mentioned here that the school system in Ghana, the schools are not, in terms of their quality, they don't differ that much. Our problem is that we congregate all the good kids in the same schools. That is where the problem is. The problem is not necessarily the quality of, say, Presec versus, let's say, Navrongo Secondary School, but it's the quality of students that end up in these schools.
So many factors make a student good. You can't just say those are just brilliant.
But we know them from we know them from their BEC results. These are the guys that get the best results from BEC.
But it was teachers who, but the teachers are teaching them. So resource is important, even though they go.
I understand that, but it's actually minor compared to the quality of students. But
how do you know? Do a research. Let's test that hypothesis, because I can.
It's from their performance in JSS.
I know somebody who scored all A's and was a top A student in my school, and we met, and I hope people watching me don't figure out who that person is. And we met in Akosomo International School, and the person performed badly. So teachers contribute to how.
I know. I agree. Yeah.
And also being clustered as good student also creates another level of motivation. I want to be the best among the best. So
there's that element as well.
Yes, because if you take me to a school that And people who went to Akosombo International School with me would say Zita was one of our top. But when I was in GSS, I might not be the top. I got into Holy Child, but the course they were giving me, my father did not like it, so decided to take me elsewhere. But if I'd gone to Holy Child, who knows? I might not even be the top. So we can't only attribute it to students' intelligence. That takes them to that level. We need to credit teaching and the teachers and the work they do. And of course, an environment where people believe that they are among brilliance and excellence, and so they need to strive to do better. There are multiple factors deciding that. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Okay. Let's move on to the next. Well, I mean, I think we've dwelled so much on this. We all are passionate about education on this platform. But let's look at the MPP's campaign and how it's going. And particularly their running mate. I mean, I'm sure Reku is not. This is not a particularly exciting topic for you, but Napo is doing something that I don't know where they have a Donald Trump problem, where he's doing something that people are complaining that he needs to stop, but he's digging deep in his heels. Almost saying that no, I'm not backing down on this matter. This is him again speaking about the performance of the MPP government vis-a-vis others, right? So let's okay, so I mean, I don't know, the audio wasn't too clear, but he was saying that if you have a parent, the expectation is that the parent expects that the child will be better than them in the future. And so he decides to mention the previous governments and that they have added on. I mean, sounding as if that is supposed to be automatic. But I mean, a lot of people said he was disrespectful towards the late Professor Mills when he said, when he got to him, he paused and then he was like, back now, oh, I mean, my tree is horrible, but that was the way he referred to Atta Mills, and people felt that it was disrespectful, and it goes back to this tag of him being arrogant, and especially this same subject matter, basically digging deep in his heels and insisting that somehow the NPP administration is better than all governments, including Nkrumah. And again, on the same subject of Nkrumah, just a couple of days ago, he's in a radio station, and he's still
ye bio beche nananum say ye party de nananum na shas you hwe o me ka say United Party da wo ye wo Progress Party wo PF aba wo MPP nananum na chichire ba fa kotonum de ba tubo e bedru o bo free shame ba nananum ye himfu okay aba ifa kabo to lona only not the People's Party ba num nya himfu o bo free aguna ba ye nananum ye himfu anno for Come come pomo ano ihifunya ko bu Togo no change voter rate capital free ho ibi ko hu o ti ho ihifunya ko Togo in California for so buy in California party buy in fact Muslims are Ghana na so do titi zongo penti o so ti party e de beka United Party no it e Ghana fu nyina party anfa na Asante for de eba Asante de no de anim no yo hene e no yi ne chiame in California ehefo awona ehefo panyi edi nanim no Odi ye new friend Dr. Baumia no so fra himfi. Mo pusi hina ka kwa kuro ko peda chilinti and Dr. Baumia papa free New Patriotic not People's Party ko ka CPP ho free UP ko ka ho. ɔsɛ ɔmia nkyɛma mprosi hene na yiri nkɔnkran ɛyi fo bebree tɔ mu ram ɔde ɔsɛ ɔba ɛfi bɛdwa de agye ɔmo paboa wanka ɛyi 400 ɔkye hene otuli firi kyɛ bi ɛkɔtɛ adabraka wɔnkran ɔmo so tete yɛ party o ɔmo na dankwa nom ɛne buzia nom ɔde bɔ panyin wɔ yɛ party no ɛyɛ ɔmo mu bɔ ɔmo de businessmen ɛne himfo ɛna ti United Party so ɔkɔ power granta sikani a ɔyɛ n'adwuma o ɔsɛ broni sisi yɛ ɛna ɔfa dankwa nom ka ho na de baayɛ ɔkɔ William say Aboriginal Right Proprietors Party ɔbɔ de ho de sikani yɛsɛ de ɔde first black millionaire ɔna high ship de ahimfo kɔ aburokye sɛ Ghana enya yɛfa ɛho yɛ ebetumi adi ɛho so eti so ɔhwɛ mu na sɛ ɔhwɛ de ahimfo ayɛ na ɔhwɛ asɔfo de ansɔre yɛ baayɛ ɔmo de mpuntuo school ne hospital de baayɛ ɔmo nya mpuntudwuma abaa bia ni a waba Ghana wɔyɛ mpuntudwuma wɔ Ghana kyɛn MPP aban mɛkɔ so aka ɛno nti ebi mpɛba asɛm a ɛno nhyɛ dan ha de wadokore no wanka ɛyɛ bɔne ma nokore sɛ wanka ɛyɛ bɔne.
Okay, so why do you think this guy is still going down this path, even though the history itself is not accurate? Right, we can talk about that, but is this a good strategy? Oreku?
For me, I think, and I've said it here before, I'm not really a big fan of Napo. I don't think he has the depth in terms of and a good appreciation of the current politics and what is going on and how to tactically capture political office or continue as a government. So I'm not really a big fan of him. I'm also not too much worried about some of the things he's saying. I mean, it's normal for politicians to say, my government is the best, and it's up to Ghanaians to decide whether actually the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government is the best in history or not. Factually, like you said, some of the facts are not true. I don't even think that Anado's government, and I've said it over and over, even can compete with before. So it's not even a close competition for you to even think of Nanado and Nkrumah. But my issue here is that Napo, I think the MPP should talk to Napo, that the contest is not between them and Nkrumah. And by focusing too much on Nkrumah, you are chasing the wind. It's not really a good strategy to use your time. And I can see that Ken Japan was not even comfortable. Ken Japan is Nkrumah, yes, to the core. And he has said over and over, I think after Napo's backlash or so before, he came out to say, yes, for him, Nkrumah is his hero. So, and I think a lot of people within the MPP top hierarchy really are not comfortable with it. First of all, it's not politically smart. You allow the NDC the opportunity to go on a different tangent and still come to hit you. And the fact that Nkrumah is so overwhelmingly popular that using your energy to attack somebody of this nature doesn't even make sense. And thirdly, factually speaking, it's not also true. So I don't know what he's trying to arrive at and what he's getting about it. Any smart politician in our current political dispensation will limit itself to the Fourth Republic. And because the Fourth Republic is a straight contest between the MPP and the NDC. So even if you say you're better than the NDC, it makes sense. And you have your own, whether true or false, achievements to list. Yeah, I remember the NDC did their own green book to list all the achievements. Then the MPP fact-checked it. And I think Bawumia did a good job. Fact-checked it and said some of them are not true. The same way the MPP is also going to do, and the NDC is going to fact-check it to see that some of them are not true. The fundamental issue is that Napo doesn't really have, he might be a populist guy. I don't know. He might be the guy who can rally some support. I don't know. I'm not really that sure. But maybe that's why maybe they selected him. But he doesn't really have the political acumen to read the room, to read the temperature, and be able to know that this argument is fruitless. He should leave this argument to the academics. I remember there was a running argument between, I think, this MPP guy who was a professor at KNUST. That now he's having some issues with the MPP.
Mwakoba.
There was a running argument between Mwakoba and Badu Akosa on Nkrumah and CPP. It was a fantastic argument, which I think Joy FM's aired it, and it was a big, nice argument where they all making. Napo should leave that because Nkrumah's legacy and the rest has become more of.
Yeah, but the truth is, the guy is not even armed with the facts, right? That's history he's attempting to give there. It's not like this is based on hearsay history he's given. It's based on growing up and hearing stories about how a party was formed, right? That is the story Napo is narrating in that statement.
What I'm saying,
it's
not actually some of the things he's saying is not true.
Yeah,
some of them are true, but what I'm saying is that focusing on Nkrumah to what end, and successive governments from Nkrumah in Ghana don't have any competition with him.
No,
Nkrumah's disadvantage and his shortfalls are due to benefit of hindsight and the fact that he did a lot of miscalculation from foreign policy to his internal governance structure to the way he centralized governance around himself. We can talk about that. That is different. But if I am a vice president, running mate or whatever, I'm not going to worry myself with Nkrumah. If anything, tactically, I'm going to exhort him. You don't lose anything if you exhort Nkrumah, whether you're NPP or NDC. You don't lose anything at all.
But the thing is, right? I always say sometimes in Ghana, some people actually get to acquire a certain status and reputation without really being carefully examined by people. And when I look at Napo, it almost seems like he doesn't have the ability to talk about real political issues. It's just not in him. And so he defaults to talking about something that he may feel like, at least I know some story around this issue. Because all the platforms, I haven't really heard him anywhere articulate any broader issue or any contemporary issues related, around politics. So when he gets the platform, he tries to sort of introduce this traditional history of MPP versus other governments, and then he defaults into that conversation. Could it be that the guy just generally doesn't?
Like I said, he doesn't have the depth, the intellectual.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he has common sense. And common sense will dictate that even if you don't understand specific details of things, you can stay clear of certain things. You don't win with that. That's all what I'm saying. So I don't know why MPP is allowing him to do that. They should sit him down and say, hey, we are not going to win election with these things, with this type of rhetoric. We can all have our issues with Bawumia, but Bawumia will not fall for that. When Bawumia was vice, I remember Tony Edo referred to him as a flat-footed politician. He made a factual error way back, I think in 2008, and that was the time Tony Edo was so loud, and he described him as a flat-footed politician. I think he made a mistake and said the GET fund about something that was introduced by the MPP or something. It was a genuine factual error. He didn't know, but he will not go on set tangent like that and behave in the way Napo is behaving. What Napo is doing doesn't help him and doesn't help the MPP. And who am I? I don't care if it doesn't help.
Well, according to
just analyzing something.
So Manasseh, he wasn't Bawumia's choice, even up to the last minute.
Yeah, it can be. I don't know.
Yeah.
It can
and sort of the way it played out in public can actually is sort of a verification of that fact, because
Bawumia struggled with who.
Yeah, it took them a while. It was obvious that they were struggling to find somebody.
I think Bawumia was not like Akufo-Addo. Akufo-Addo too, when he picked Bawumia, was a tough decision.
Yeah.
It was a really tough
decision.
It was a last minute decision, the same way as there's a lot of the MPP work.
But the difference here is that what's his name? Napo was already in the picture from the very beginning.
Napo is already a politician.
You understand? So it's like they tried to avoid him at all costs. Yes. But there wasn't just any option. Yeah.
Yes. So Bawumia was just picked by Akufo-Addo against the party. And with time, he showed that, I'm smart. Give me the exposure, give me the experience. I can really sacrifice myself for the party to come to office. And he did that. Whether eventually they've not been able to fulfill it or not is also another matter, which we can talk about. But we're talking about a running mate. A running mate, you don't want to outshine the master. currently what Napo is doing is that he is kind of really outshining Baumia. So the first rule of Tamil, never outshine the master.
Yeah,
but he's kind of outshine him, and it's not really outshine him positively. He's outshine him with
a very negative,
with a little bit of different political rhetoric, which is really backing up. If it was going to win the votes, that was okay. But I don't think attacking Nkrumah that way will bring anything to the MPP, even in Ashanti region. When Joy FM people went to Ashanti region street to go and interview people about Napo saying that their government is better than Nkrumah, man for say, by phone way, better, like people were just talking about it.
Yeah.
Because Nkrumah has enduring edifice. I don't think edifice.
There's a lot of legacy projects that are.
I don't think edifice is development. I really, from my but Nkrumah has enduring edifice, which we still see and we're still benefiting from. And even if you count it, no government in our history can compete.
Yeah.
So the ordinary person will count the edifice and say, hey, don't come close to him. So I don't know where Napo is going with, but let's see how.
Okay, Zita. Well, I mean, conspiracy theorists are at work and they say he is trying to sabotage his boss so that they lose the election and then he becomes the flag bearer in 2028. I don't know.
I disagree. I don't think he's just who he is. He's just being himself, and that is who he is. Unfortunately, I do not think Napo is trying to outshine Baumia. Baumia doesn't have any charisma, and Baumia has not been sharing any campaign messages. He's been dancing.
But do you realize that actually in 2020, I think 2008, there after 2008, right? I would say maybe after the election petition, Baumia was basically the face of the MPP. Even though Akufo-Addo was in the scene, but he took the spotlight most of the time.
Yeah,
but
because
in a very good way too for them.
Yeah, right? Because of his pedigree as somebody who, touting the PhD in economics, I'm going to transform. And he was speaking to issues then. But I mean now, the Baumia we have now, somebody should tell me what specific campaign, rigorous campaign, that is filled with feasible ideas that Baumia is engaging in. So sometimes the master will lead and the vice will follow. Napo is doing what he wants to do, because I have not seen any Baumia campaign where he's talking about real feasible ideas, not copy and pasting systems from the West, like credit system, and then he would dance and then he'll be dancing to music here and there. I have not seen a serious campaign where he's focused.
Well, there's only so much you can promise.
Yes, I'm not talking about promises. He should mix the promises with, some more feasible thing. He's a very smart, intelligent man, and he's well educated. Engaging in very reasonable messages. I've not seen that. So what do we expect from Napo? Because he would have to follow his lead. But because Baumia is not directing the ship with critical thinking and some feasible political strategy and campaign, what will Napo do? He will go and incite things that will make him, ramp up.
Yeah, so it almost seems like there's really no guideline. There's no formula that they are following.
Yes.
So when you hear Napo out
there,
he's almost speaking as if his own man,
yes,
right? Who is out there just talking for himself. It doesn't seem like he's speaking on behalf of a ticket, which has a certain agenda, and wouldn't want to move outside of those the premises of that agenda.
Exactly. So he's just doing he is himself. I mean, he's been in politics for long, but I do agree he lacks political acumen. I mean, it's just, I would not say, I mean, he's a doctor, medical doctor. I would expect much better. No, I would expect much better, but he's engaging in Makola politics, the politics of what we expect. The younger boys, the grassroots boys, those who go on the local stations to be doing and yelling. I would expect that, Baumia has a PhD, you are a medical doctor, you have to be refined, you are educated. Engage us in some, politics of ideas, politics of, okay, these are some of the errors we made, this is how we are going to correct it. But I haven't even seen them together. on any platform where Baumia is confident that he is the man on this ticket and this is the ship and this is the direction. He will be dancing and just be shouting it is possible and be saying we will do this and that, and Napo is elsewhere. So they lack cohesion. And I'm just going to end my ship. Like I always say, he was chosen on ethnicity or tribal grounds to make sure that there's a southern not dynamic to appease the base. But that is where MPP made a mistake. What's the name of the education minister again? Is it Nim? Edichum. He might not have been popular, but I feel like he was giving me the Professor Tamil's energy. I don't really know him. Napo is more popular, but he was just giving me the calm, but I know my stuff kind of person. Yeah, but again, Napo has the ginger. Bamia doesn't have the ginger, so I'm sure they were just going for more of a personality thing. And for me, it is just to fulfill the North and South thing. They didn't choose specifically somebody who has that sharp political acumen to even refine Bawumia's tangents. Because these days, I don't know what he's campaigning about. I see him dancing and I see him, just shouting digitalization. He's not telling us, because as a man who's intelligent, who've gotten a doctorate, I need your thoughts to be coherent. I need to hear where you are going with the digitalization and how you are going to ensure there are systems in place for Ghana to have a good credit system where somebody can buy a phone and pay it within any amount of years. I need to have that. And I don't see any sense of direction in the campaigning. And so Napo is just a free man walking around, and wherever he gets the opportunity and there are cameras there, he's just going to engage in the Makola type of politics that he's used to. So, I mean, is it a choice that will end up taking the elephant back to the bush? They put a rope around their neck and they're dragging themselves there, because these are critical times. Yes, your government might have failed, but you need to just put some dignity on it and give us some message and say, this is what we've done. And the other time we saw Kennedy Japan do it, I saw a video of him and he said, oh, he was speaking in Chi and he said something to that effect that he knows that they've made some errors, but he can assure them that when they get into power, they are going to, now if you offend somebody, you must apologize. So the MPP must first apologize to Ghanaians and then assure Ghanaians that when they are given the mandate, they would do better.
Okay. Right.
I would expect something like that, but it's not happening.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like a well-coordinated campaign for me. And back to the idea of selecting Napo to satisfy the base or energize the base. Now, but I've also noticed that over the years, the MPP support has also come from the so-called elite in Ghana. And to some extent, they also form a large part of the swing voters. And so having Napo go out and say all these ridiculous things, the history itself is inaccurate. Any educated person sitting down and listening to Napo, talk about the history of the formation of the MPP in this manner, would know that he's misinforming his kids at home and wouldn't take it kindly. And for me, and also the manner in which he's characterizing people like Nkrumah and Atta Mills is likely to turn off some decent Ghanaians who historically have supported the MPP over NDC. So you end up satisfying the base and end up alienating another huge voting bloc, right, that supports you in most elections. So I think that's the risk with him. But I mean, we saw it. A lot of the media houses carried water for MPP the entire time. And because of that, they are unable to call them out on their ills during this administration. But this is another guy. And again, we'll just talk about this broadly in terms of the MPP strategy going into these elections. But this is Brian Achampo. Let's listen to him and come back again, because he has said something that he has said several times.
2024 abano enya do me win da amo win moko check mo record amo win na MPP amano kuono yes ho say you be win election MPP yes ho say you be win election it dey enim no kwai bia so aye be fa abano the befaso they political party political party asofo wom imamfo wom omobukunsa wom that dey say you be win election eti akwai bia ye befaso a you be win election no ye befaso Otiazi abokoshepo you be win election no me atia etuma pa ye.
So, Oreku, I mean, you have been a sympathizer of the MPP over the years. I mean, is this characteristic of your party?
I don't know why you are officially framing me as a...
I mean, that's the fact.
You know, at times, like I think we were recently talking about the fact that these kind of conversations are so basic, and I don't know whether you're inviting me to rationalize this comment. Or
if you think that that's the best way to approach it, that's up to you.
Doesn't warrant discussion. I think it's just political rally, usual Ghanaian political rally sort of thing, sort of commentary. You're going to win the election by all means. If you ask him what does it mean, he will tell you legal means. Then case closed. But the fact of the matter is that if they lose the election, they have no option than to exit. They cannot stay on to office. There's little they can do if they lose this election.
But is he not implying that they're going to use other means beyond or the transparent ballot box?
That's what I'm saying. That if you ask him, and I think if you ask him to clarify, he say that all the means they are talking about is legal means. So what I'm saying is that, and I don't want to be in a position to defend him. I don't even know him, and I shouldn't be in a position to even defend his message. If it is illegal means, then it's illegal means. The court, the legal system should go.
So, but there's no cause for alarm to hear.
What I'm saying is that's how I think that's all politicians. That's how.
So there's just pure political rhetoric. There's nothing.
Yeah, just pure.
Nothing attached to it. There's no danger in sort of.
I mean, it's difficult to invite me to analyze some of these things.
You cannot.
It's treated as just political gimmick or somebody trying to blow hot air.
Okay.
But what I know is that if they lose this election, they are going home.
Okay.
They don't have any option. They will exit.
Yeah.
So if they think that they can steal and win this election, historically, it is difficult to steal elections in Ghana and win.
Okay.
So if the plan include that, by all means, include any foul means, then it's up to the NDC to allow that. Because if you look at the structures we have in Ghana, to be frank with you, if you look at the structures, the way we do our elections, it is really difficult.
But
they are rigging here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But to rig yourself to victory when the votes are against you.
I mean, it depends on how much votes are against you.
That's what I'm saying. So, but if MPP is not really doing well, like the way we're saying they are not doing well, and all indicators point to the fact that they are not doing well, they should lose in such a way that John Mahama should be able to cruise to victory one touch.
I mean, but you understand our politics. There's a lot of entrenched voting going on in our country where, regardless of the issues, each party is guaranteed a certain minimum.
Yeah, a certain percentage.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, I would say NDC in 2004, when I didn't expect NDC to perform as good as they did in 2004, right? But that was largely because there were just some people that were moving, irrespective of what the issue was. In 2008, MPP lost the election by 40,000 votes.
Yeah.
So can you imagine? That's something that can be rigged.
So let's go back to.
Let me tell you something. There are how many constituencies in Ghana? Polling stations. There's about 30,000 polling stations in Ghana. If, let's say, hypothetical, maybe this is an impossibility, but hypothetically, if you are able to rig a single vote from each constituency,
that is why it's difficult. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example, 2008, 2004.
Yeah.
So 2008, the NPP led the first round. You know how many votes they needed to win? 23,000. At that time, we had like 23,000 polling stations. If they had rigged one vote every, I think we had 23rd, 24, I've forgotten.
Yeah.
But if you had rigged one vote,
every
police station, and they were in office,
Mhm.
they would have won that election one touch because
Yes.
they led 49 votes. But you see how it was so difficult that all their whatever, let's assume they rigged, it still couldn't cross the line for them.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
But I'm just saying that it's not beyond the imagination that someone can rig and easily win the election because of how tight it is.
There are electoral malpractices in Ghana in all our elections.
Yeah.
There are administrative errors, and the Supreme Court has established that. There are, and even Chachu's submission, he pointed out that these are administrative errors. Yes, we agree, but it doesn't affect the election. So the court should
but I mean, yes, we agree. But what I'm
so
trying
those
to
things are there. Those things can swing one or two,
Mhm.
but the totality of the votes. All what I'm trying to say is that if Brian Champon's goal is that they're going to rig their way out, I don't think that's what he's thinking. But if that is if that is how he's thinking, he should rather really surrender the elections because there's no way he can rig himself out.
Okay, so I mean, I will come to you very soon. But the thing is, now we did some analysis in terms of the voter registration in the last election in the Volta region. When every other constituency was adding about 100,000 new voters to their roll, the Volta region added only 500 new voters. My impression from that is that they were able to suppress the registration exercise in Volta region. And so from between 2016 and 2020, only 500 new voters were added to the roll based on the new registration. So if you are able to suppress registration in this manner, and you require only if, for instance, if we were by some magical means, were able to say that
NDC other regions.
Was that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, but not necessarily do it in other regions, but only do it in the Volta region. If you are successful that way and you are winning the election by the margin that you won it in 2008, you're ultimately going to lose because of that suppression that went on.
So what happened after the suppression? When they still suppressed it, let's assume, I don't know what, I don't know your findings, but you said they suppressed. Let's assume they suppressed it.
Yeah.
And what was still the outcome?
I mean, 2020
the NDC still won more votes.
No, MPP won.
No, I'm talking about
the suppression happened in 2020.
Yes, what happened in 2024?
What do you mean?
What was the margin of victory of the NDC?
No, but the election hasn't happened yet. It's not 2024 is yet to come. So we are yet to see.
I know you did some suppression analysis.
So that's what I'm saying, that was prior to the 2020 election. So for instance, the new register for 2020, right?
Prior to the 2020 election. So the 2020 election, what happened?
What happened was that NDC lost.
No, I'm talking about Volta region when they suppressed that vote.
No, but the margins in Volta region, the number of votes in Volta region reduced. Not reduced per se, but what I'm trying to say is that every year our population increases, right? So every region adds on new voters. In the case of Volta region, if you take the 2016 register and compare it to 2020 register, they only added 500 new voters, which is not realistic because population has grown more than that. I looked at a comparable region, which happens to be, for instance, the Brong-Ahafo region added over 100,000 new voters to its register from the previous 2016 register. So, but we had already had allegations of police military presence in various parts of the of the Volta region that was intimidating people and preventing them from going out to register. So when I saw the Volta region figures that they only added 500 voters to their roll, I wasn't surprised because what happened was that they under-registered people based on the intimidation that went on. So if you are able to suppress that many votes, then you're already guaranteed a certain, results from Volta region because you're beginning from negative. Basically, NDC is beginning its count in the Volta region from a negative number. And so I'm not only saying that and saying that if the election is as close as 2008 and the MPP manages to prevent people from voting as they did in 2020 in the Volta region, then ultimately they are going to win the election because of the thin margin. That if everything was transparent, let's assume, it would have been the outcome of the results. The election.
So if the elections are close, which it shouldn't be close, but if they are close for this election, then and the NDC is to lose, then they deserve to lose because it shouldn't be close.
Well, I mean, okay, so but I'm just saying that
what I'm trying to say is that historically we've seen a pattern of rigging of government that have been in office but they still lose our election. We have examples even under Rawlings. We have examples of allegations of rigging under Kufuor, under Rawlings, allegations of rigging, and of which they rigged, but the MPP still won. Under Kufuor, we had allegations of rigging, of which they rigged, NDC still won. Under Mahama, we had allegations of rigging, which they rigged, MPP still won. So for me, if Brian Achampon's strategy is, if it includes rigging, he should forget about it. It's not going to work. But you have a genuine fear. If that genuine fear is really there, I'm thinking the NDC has the capacity. They've been to elections. They should be able to solve that. They should be able to tackle that head on. It shouldn't be you and I to even worry our head around it. The NDC, and all those groups should be able to tackle this.
All right, Zita, what do you think? Do you have similar trust in our electoral system, and should we take Brian Achampon's comments lightly? Is it just mere political talk to energize his supporters or whatever?
I mean, we don't expect them to get on a platform where they will say, "Oh, I feel we they be Lucy." You know, if you say like we didn't, fulfill our campaign promises. So it's mainly how Ghana's politics work. You get there and you ginger them. We are winning at all costs. They are here, not that, and then you incite your people to be shouting. That's just how the system works. But again, we can't throw caution to the wind. So it's in the best interest of the opposition party and other independent contestants and the smaller parties to pay attention and keep an eye. There's always some form of rigging or political dabbling here and there during elections. With the Volta region thing, I mean, we all know it, but one of the key things that is a challenge is the fact that Voltarians have always had this this thing of not feeling like they are Ghanaians, and I said it here before. So in as much as when you suppress them, they are likely to also not show up because consistently and throughout history, they've always been antagonized and felt as not part of Ghanaians. And so that also culminated in, let's not show up and register and vote. So keep an eye, NDC, independent, keep an eye. There'll be rigging here and there, but you've done the analysis, and I don't think you can rig by an extremely huge margin where you can overturn the vote of the majority. But it's still going to happen, and so keep an eye on stuff. I mean, he's talking. MPP knows that if they win this election, I will be surprised. I will be extremely surprised because even very staunch members, and honestly, I respect Kennedy Japan for even saying that, you offend somebody, you go and you apologize and you reassure them you will do better. So for him to have public, I don't know if you've seen the video, but
I have. He said he should admit their wrongs before asking Ghanaians for a fresh mandate. Yes, for
a fresh mandate, but ignoring that. So for him to even proceed like that, he understands what is going on in Ghana. And so, Brian Achampong, typical political, the way they do in Ghana, you can't go there and not have the energy. You have to be extremely high on energy and say, we are winning. When even in your heart, you winning will be, MPP wins, I don't know, that would be like the biggest shock I will receive, because even people who are sympathizers of the party have expressed their greatest displeasure, not just on the economic front, but the high levels of corruption and just the blatant disregard for the electorates by some of the leading members of the party. So, hey, Brian Achampong, perhaps he's telling us to be watchful. So keep an eye, and I look forward to seeing what will happen, but I would like to see more of politics of ideas. Like Ghana's democracy have grown. All this going and talking about Winnie and Nkrumah Diwemuko. It's not, we want to hear issues, and And that is the reason why, for me, I'm focused on the education sector, because if we reform the basic education, we are creating the kind of electorate we have works for the kind of politics that we have. Honestly, I sit back, and I was somebody who was extremely keen in politics, but my interests have dissipated, because being in Ghana's politics just makes you dim your intelligence and your critical thinking. It really does. It makes you dim it, and you can't shine that, because the people you are even serving and trying to, do for are not thinking on that level. They just want to get by. They just, feel good. Get this 200 Ghana, 300 Ghana, go and vote. And they're not thinking of the next 4 years. They're not thinking of the next 8 years and the future of Ghanaians. And so I hope that it all boils down, but because if we have more discerning, and of course it would take time for the face of our electorates to change, for there to be more awareness among our electorates. But I hope we can get there, where politicians will no longer go on a campaign and be saying you're win it without ideas, we'll be discussing ideas. Even because it doesn't mean we have to be literate. Even those who speak the local language, if there's that discernment, you go and so when you say this is how we are going to do it, and you take us step by step on how you are going to do this particular policy and what are some of the expected outcomes. That is where I hope Ghana's politics get to, where we can really discuss ideas and not just feel good and chanting here and there.
Okay. Yeah. So clearly, I mean, if I would sum it up, it doesn't seem like the NPP has a message, because, Brian Achampa has been given the platform several times, and this message is what he keeps repeating. Napo is given the platform, and then he also has his own line of conversation that he thinks, I don't know who is attracted to that type of talk, but so I don't know the strategy of the NPP going into this campaign, but it doesn't seem the issues are on their side. And I think if NDC sticks to the issues, it's their election to lose. But, I think we'll draw the curtains here. Oreku has a wedding to attend, so I don't want to keep him too long. So I'll allow him to go and enjoy. But, thanks for coming. And then, Zita, as always, yes.
Bye.
All right, so we'll meet again next week, guys. Bye. Thanks, yeah. All right.
You let it yum, 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 yum. Titatia, undidla sikulgatia.